All right, everyone. Show it is 2 o'clock. So welcome everyone to today's session over learning to use Ultra. This is a slight schedule change from the previously planned session due to an unforeseeable personal situation with our presenter. So, as a reminder, here are a few housekeeping tips to keep in mind during the presentation. Phones and cameras are turned off for bandwidth purposes to help ensure a reliable and quality presentation. Your comments and questions are encouraged. Remember to put those in the chat, and your questions will be answered during the Q&A portion. This session is being recorded. The presenter's materials will not be made available for this session. However, the recording will be captioned and made available about a week once Ultra Week is over. And if you need or would like to have real-time captions as this presentation goes on, you can use the Google Chrome browser. There is a link posted in the chat for you to use that gives you additional information on that. So today's presenter is Erica Weise. She's graduated from WKCTC in 2016 with an associate degree in multimedia. She earned her bachelor's degree in instructional design from Asbury University. Erica has a passion for art and design that she shares with her students as an instructor for visual communication courses. Erica has worked for over 18 years in various creative fields before joining KCTCS System Office in 2020 as an instructional consultant for online learning. She uses her talents in various capacities at the System Office, including an emphasis on helping instructors develop their courses through participation in the Cool Academy. So without further ado, everyone please welcome Erica Weise.
Well, my goodness, that was quite an introduction, and thank you so much for that, Brian. How is everybody doing? Can you all hear me well?
Erica, you are just a little bit lighter in voice than everyone else. If you could just speak up a little
Okay,
bit or adjust your mic.
you bet. Is that better?
Yes, that is better. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. All right, well, for those of you that may not have realized, as Brian had pointed out in the chat, there was an emergency that has brought me to replacing the session that Scott was going to give, but I am glad to be here with you despite his emergency and hope that what I go over is going to be of some use for those of you that have not had a chance to start putting anything in Ultra. So we're going to walk through Ultra. I'm just going to give you an overview of the interface and what you can expect. And let me see if I can get this giving here. Let me share my screen with you. Excuse me. Okay, I am attempting to share my screen. Are you all able to see anything?
No, it's not showing your screen.
Okay. Well, then I will approach it another way. We'll go with my, see how that works. How's that? Better?
It's thinking about it. Now it's showing. Yes, we got it.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. I was sharing my window. It wasn't letting me. So if I'm assuming that this should work with the pop-ups, I just want to make sure that I don't lose anybody along the way. So you're going to, when you get to your institution page, of course, you're going to click onto your courses as you would if you were to look for your Learn Original course. And I am going to walk you through a course, my Ultra Sandbox course. There's some things in here that you're going to see that are um, just sort of works in progress, and I sort of use this as a landing spot, but it will absolutely serve the purpose for going through what all of the components and features are in Ultra. So you're going to see the name of your course is up here in the very left-hand corner, and you can edit that if you like. Just by hovering over, you'll be able to see this little pencil icon. Um, then you'll also see along the top this menu bar that shows what sort of main page you can access in Ultra. So right now we're on the main content page. There's also a calendar link that will show things like the overall schedule. If you add that to Ultra as code, which I'll show you in just a moment where that's at. You can also look by due dates if you have any items as you add to your course. You can check out the due dates there. You can look by day or by month. You'll also have access to all of the discussions that are part of your course. And this is also where you'd access the gradebook. Ultra has one sort of, or encourages one sort of centralized area where you can create course messages, which is useful if you're wanting to make sure that all the students get a message, or messages are also very useful for contacting individual students, as you can start a message here from this link, but also as messages are sent and received, they'll all be in one place and accessible right here through this link. And then for those of you that are interested in running analytics, you can gather those through this link up along the top here. You're also going to notice that on the right side, the only link or the only option for you to link out to is a student preview. That's set aside so it doesn't get overlooked, but as you're building your course, you can get an idea of what your students see by clicking that link, and it's going to pop up this little message that says student preview creates a course member. So you'll notice that in your gradebook as well, that it will show you as an actual student in the course. But you obviously don't have to participate in the course, but it just gives you an opportunity to see exactly what your students see according to the permissions that you've set on everything, which I'll show you further in just a minute. So if you were to start preview, rather than seeing the course with, I don't know if you happen to remember, but there was a lot of additional documents and things like that that I had set to hidden. So now you'll just see, as a student enters a course, they're just going to see things that you are ready, that you have made ready for them to see. So that they're available, and you've got them added, and everything is how you'd like it to be. And so that is a great way for you to get eyes on, or at least to some degree, visualize what your students are going to experience in your course. To exit the preview, you're going to go up to the same area of the window and hit the ellipse, and then you can exit right there. So a lot of times when people are building their courses, they use the student preview to, on and off, so they can see how content is being presented. So I'm going to switch back over to the main content tab. And as we go along through the rest of the window, you're going to see I am sharing the instructor duties with Dr. Simpson here. We're both instructors in my Sandbox course. So students are going to see who their instructors are right here under course faculty. You'll also see other details and actions, which includes seeing everybody that's enrolled in your course. And when you click that link, this is the preview user. Oh, that is another sample student. But you can also add and enroll people if you wanted to enroll, say, a teaching assistant or maybe another instructor in your department or things like that. You could type their name in, add them, and then you can assign roles to them as well. So that's where you're going to find your roster. You can also create groups within the course by clicking on this link. This is great for you know, course projects that you feel would be beneficial for students to work on as a group, and groups can range anywhere from just, pairing them up in teams of 2 to 7 or 8, depending on the size of your course. So this is where you would want to access the space to create groups in the course, which is a little bit further into what we want to cover today. So just to make you aware that that's where you're going to find that, and that is an option in Ultra. Progress tracking is somewhat of a new feature that they've added, and what this does is it allows students the opportunity to see where they are as far as what content they've already completed versus what they're working on. And if you choose to turn that on, it gives you a message here on the side that says it allows specific items to be marked as complete when a student has made a submission or contributed to a discussion. And then anything that they don't have to participate in, it can be manually marked. So if they have read through some of the content or reviewed the resources, they can check it as completed after they've done it. So that's a really nice way to help keep, to provide this extra step of organization for your students. And to turn that on, you just switch that over to on. If you find or get feedback that it's maybe more of a distraction or students aren't utilizing it, you can always turn it off. And I'll save that there. And I'll show you what that looks like in student preview. There is a little button along the side, this right here. And once all the children have completed their work, then once they've gone through all of these pieces of content, they can either mark that done, or by opening it and showing that it's been looked at, then I can stop sharing and it shows that it was complete there. So that is a nice added feature that you can find on the left side of the menu.
Erica, we actually have a question for you.
Oh, what's that?
Raphael says, can we use the marked as completed option to implement adaptive release rules like in Learn?
Well, possibly. I think that so I'm not explicitly familiar with how that worked in Learn. Were you able to, so in other words, as the instructor, you were able to control that and mark things as completed, or was it more of, were you as the instructor marking it as complete so students could go to the next item, or exactly how did that work in Learn?
Hi, Erica. Thank you for taking my question. Yes.
Sure.
So, yes, when you're creating an adaptive release rule in Learn, it will
Mhm.
automatically generate a mark review button for any items that you select to include as part of the rule. So I was
I got
wondering
you.
if you activate that progress, that tracking mode, will
Mhm.
that be an option to be implemented also as an adaptive release rule?
Well, I think that they might be two different features, or I'm not sure how connected they are in Ultra, but I do know that when you create an assignment, which I'm going to jump forward just a touch, and let me see if I have an assignment I can use here. Yeah, maybe here we go. So if I edit this quiz, and up in this corner where the student preview is, I can either have it hidden from students or visible to students, which is kind of the variation that we saw between the student preview and the instructor view. But also the release conditions is similar to what you're talking about when it comes to um, progressive. So you can have this for all the members, and then you can set the conditions on whether or not it's by date or time, and then you can be specific there, or you can have it be based on performance, and the performance can be on a specific graded item, which would be just before that, or um, you can have it, other these other details. Now that would be by assignment or quiz or assessment. If you wanted to, um, if you wanted to have it be more in line with your modules, then you would want to set, excuse me, that within, sorry about this. Let's see here. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me find something with more content. You would want that to be setting the release conditions for each piece within the module. So it doesn't just have to be an assessment. You can do it there also. But if you have it, I don't think that, I think that they're treated as two separate components in Ultra. And so one has more to do with the helping the students stay organized and track where they're at as far as what they've completed, and then the other is based on whatever settings you do as the instructor. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Erica. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
you're welcome. Sure, no problem. So one other thing that we that they just sort of added was one of the a lot of the feedback that they had originally received from Ultra was that there wasn't a lot of options for sort of customizing um, your course, but one thing that they did add to help out with that is being able to display a course image up along the top, which will also mimic whatever thumbnail if you use the grid view to search for your courses rather than the list view. If you wanted to add a course image to the top to help personalize it some, it should, but I guess it is not. Try this one more time. I tested this earlier. Well, I'll just upload an image then. How's that? Oi. I'll grab. There we go. And you can have, this will help you modify what you wanted to show. And we can be done and save. And I had that marked as decorative, so it should take just a few minutes. If I refresh it, it should show. There. Now let me turn it on. There we go. And there you have a little banner, which you can edit here and so on and so forth. But that is something just a little bit newer that instructors have been quite excited about, to see another option for them to personalize their course in Ultra. The next menu item here is whether or not your students can access the course. So be sure, just like in Learn, you make the course accessible to students after the semester begins, so that way they can see the content. It's one of those did you check if it was plugged in sort of situations. It's you might be getting a lot of messages that say that they can't open the course, and that might be the reason why. So once you allow them to jump in the course and see what's going on, you'll want to do that right here. Then you've also got your Blackboard Collaborate, which is gives you the same kind of options that you had in Learn. If you go to the expandable ellipse there, you're going to get all different kinds of options for managing your sessions, to review the recordings, closing the course room if you're not feeling like you're going to utilize that, or you can create sessions and you can either have them join a one or main course room and add additional sessions there. And then direct students to that. Yes.
You are echoing. Maybe turn off your microphone and then turn it back on and see if that fixes it for us.
Okay, sure. Sorry about that. Hold on. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that.
You might want to repeat what you were just talking about because it was pretty jumbled on this end.
Oh, sure. So I was just before I was talking about Collaborate. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that this is also where you're going to open the course up to students when the semester starts. So just like Learn, you're going to have to make sure that the students are able to see the course and allow them to enter the course. So you're going to do that right here on one of these left-hand menu items. So excuse me, if I hit this, then it's going to give you a prompt that says open the course so students can access it, yes, and then the message will change from course is private to students can enter the course. Just under that is where you're going to find all of the options for Collaborate. You've got, if you wanted to just join the main course room or specific sessions, will be listed underneath here if you've created a session. So if there's a particular unit that you're going to discuss as a synchronous session, then you could create that session and let students know that they're going to go under join session and go to that particular room. And there's also a way for you to access all the other options for Collaborate here, which is to maybe get a guest room link. You can edit other room settings, manage all sessions, view recordings. So accessing Collaborate, sorry about that. Accessing Collaborate is done right here on this menu item. If you wanted to take attendance for synchronous classes, or a lot of instructors have hybrid courses as well, you can track the attendance here. You can look at overall, or you can look at meetings, and then you can also go to previous days, previous sessions, things like that. So that's a nice feature. Some instructors like to mark attendance as part of the participation. So you'll also notice that in the gradebook, if you've chosen to keep track of attendance, it'll track that in the gradebook as well. And you can have that be a gradebook item as part of your final grade. All right, the next item list here is just the announcements. So it'll keep a running total here as to how many you have, how many you have posted, things like that. And when you click on there and you click on here, the announcements are sent either, you can have a copy sent via email to students, or you can pre-schedule the announcement. If you pre-schedule the announcement, then they will only show up when the student accesses the course, and it will be the first thing that they see when they open the course up. It'll be this announcement that comes up. But if you send it a copy, then of course they'll get an actual copy, and within the email body, the entire message will show up. So, and this is just similar text editor to what you've seen probably in Learn or something similar. And this is the same type of text editor that you're going to see the same options for when you're creating content as well. So You can, a lot of times, announcements are great for making sure students are kind of aware of what's coming up or what they need to think about from previous lessons and how that incorporates into what they're about to be learning. So that is where you're going to create and manage all of your announcements. Okay. Similar to when you would add a LTI item or other course tools, this is a link. It's sort of another way for you to access either publisher content or other specific institutional tools. And here it says if you can't find what you need, scrolling down, you can browse all. So this is just another way to access the content market. That little link on the side there. And then, oops, excuse me, I'll just select one. Let me go back down to that. Browse all course tools, and I'll just go here. Oh, well, and I don't know if that one's going to work. We'll try this. And then it will allow you to access that from there, whether or not you want to necessarily add that is up to you. Oh, for goodness sake. Can you all still see?
No.
So it has stop sharing.
All right, hold on. All right, let me go back to, I was afraid of that because I was sharing my tab. So give me just a second. Okay, there we go. Better?
Yes.
All right, and back to where we started. Okay, so that is where you're going to be able to additionally access all of the publisher content and things like that. Question banks is something that was covered in one of the sessions earlier, and I think that there might be maybe another session coming up. I'm not sure. Is that correct, Dr. Simpson, about assessments, or no?
Blackboard is doing one on the gradebook. Well, they've called it the gradebook and assessments. I think it's the same, a repeat of what they did today, which is more of a roadmap.
Gotcha.
There are some bits and pieces about the gradebook.
Okay. Well, if you have question banks that would be compatible for with Ultra and bringing it in, this is where you would, I guess, import them. I was going to say, chances are it's going to navigate to a document or something for you to import this. And it says here you can use question banks to share questions. Oh, there we go. So those are some of the information. So if you had some question banks from Learn, Amy, Dr. Amy Argo also did a session on that earlier. So this would be something useful for importing question banks there. Earlier, we had talked about the calendar. I just showed you where that was. And if you wanted to add a course schedule here, you could do that. And there were specific times that, the course met, or maybe there's specific times you wanted to mention synchronous sessions that you'd like, want to promote students attending. You can add that there, and then it would show up in their calendar. So we move over to the next part of the window. This is where you would consider all of your course content. You've got, as you see here, there's some links. These little icons here indicate what type of content that is. You've got a link, you've got an Ultra document. This gray box is what we call a learning module. And you'll also notice in the instructor view that you have these options that come up as you hover over in between each type of content, these little arrows or these little plus signs. So once you click onto one of those plus signs, then you're going to get another menu option that allows you to create content or copy content, upload content, go to the content market, your cloud storage, or your content collection. So you've got different, depending on where you've stored previous content and information, you would want to choose the appropriate option there for you. But let's just say we're going to start something from scratch. So I will go to create, and then I'll get another set of options, which includes a learning module, which is sort of like a container that holds all, that has all the information for this particular unit or this or a certain topic. And so you want to make sure that everything is organized and contained and chunked appropriately. And then you can also utilize a folder if you had several documents that had similar topics and you wanted to maybe, you know, not have it be so overwhelming for students to open a module and just see 20 documents. You can maybe just put all those in one and call it resources. The document, which is more, usually when you think of a document, you think of a Word document, but in cases of Ultra, this is what would be like a page or an Ultra document is just kind of like that particular page with a variety of content, whatever you'd like that to be. So we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and create one of those in just a minute. After I go through the rest of these, you could also have a direct link, which we have here on the content page already. This is that other area where you would access LTI connection if you wanted to. And let me go back to that. I'm going to create. And if you're like Brian and you create your own SCORM packages, you can import those here. And this is where you would create a test or an assignment. And this is where you would create a discussion or a journal. Any one of these options is going to give you another set of menu options for you to add details to. So even say the journal is going to open up a page. You'd want to name the journal. You can give the directions for the students on how you'd like them to utilize that. And you have options here on whether you want that to be graded, or if you'd like it not to be graded, or if you'd like it to be graded, then you're going to go to that little gear and you're going to check the appropriate bits of information that you want. If you have created a rubric for something, they are usually all stored somewhere, so you can add a rubric there. Or if I hit add rubric, I've got a few, and then I can add that, or I have the option to create a new one. So one of the things that you may have noticed is there's a lot of extra details that lead into or are led into by whichever menu option that you choose. And this is one of the ways that Ultra has been designed to try and make it as streamlined as possible for you to create content and make sure that all the details and things that your students need to be successful are covered. And, just things to help you manage your course as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to go back to adding a document. And when I do that, it's going to pop up this new, like I said, it really just looks like a web page, but I'm going to name this test, or we'll name it Ultra Week. Okay. And you're going to want to hit return. I can't tell you how many times I have not hit return and then it hasn't actually changed it. And then here again, more options. So we're going to use this base to build our document. do we want to upload something from the computer? Do we want to upload from cloud storage? Those of you that are familiar with HTML, which I am not, might want to use that. Or if you're simply wanting to type a message, then you've got this text editor here that you can use these text styles, or you can change the font. One thing you want to keep in mind if you're going to do that is to it by default Ultra uses Open Sans, which is nice for consistency, and it would be my suggestion that rather than changing the font for any reason, that you that it's done with some sort of intention, um, and not just to randomize how content looks. That can be really confusing for students. So usually I just keep it with the default font and maybe make adjustments to the size, which you can go up to 48, or um, vary from different sizes there. You can also, oops, excuse me, you can also go to choosing a color, and we have been told that any of these colors that are chosen are meet the guidelines for accessibility. You can also, this is bold. If I were to hit bold, it's not going to do much more. But if I were to have chosen, say, paragraph and then made that bold, it would have made it bold. So there's, I would, suggest really utilizing your text styles, but if you wanted to put more emphasis on something, you can increase the size and change the color, and utilize these if you are within a paragraph. You can also strike through or superscript subscript. They've also added this feature recently because there was a lot of trouble with tables, but now you can actually add a table and insert it here. And once again, gives you options here if you got your headers as you would need to make them compliant. So we'll have 3. I'm just, you have to hit assigns, and then insert that, and there's your table. So they have added that recently, and there's all your other options for a table there. You can also create lists, which I'll show you a few pages that have lists of things, and choose how you'd like those to have those formatted. If you have copy and pasted some text in from another document or even a web page, and you want to start fresh and have all the rest of your formatting match, you can clear the format that is currently been pasted and then start over there. If you wanted to add a link to the information that you add here, you're going to be mindful of what, be mindful of, let's see, I'm just going to, if I have lost you, just hold on, I'll be right back. My path, oops, and that will, there we go. And then before that, be sure to visit my path for more instructions. And there, and I'll just show you this real quick. If you wanted to add something, add an attachment from your, where'd that screenshot go? You add an attachment from your desktop or navigating to another source, either your content on your OneDrive or your course content. It's going to attach it and gives you this other pop-up here, which also falls in line with the accessibility concerns and issues. here we go. So you're going to want to make sure that it's got an appropriate display name and not necessarily just screenshot. So I think that this was Creative Cloud. I'm just going to put this C Cloud. And now, if this is a banner or something that isn't going to affect the information that the student really needs, then you can mark this image as decorative because, and then it wouldn't require alternative text because, in other words, the students are going to be able to um, learn what they need to learn just by the rest of the information, and this is more or less just to provide a sort of a visual aid or just a visual cue, and it's not necessarily needed for the main point to be made to the students. So I'll mark that image as decorative. And if it's not decorative and this is going to serve maybe a deeper purpose, then you would want to make sure that you have a Creative Cloud opening graphic. Have added an appropriate description for the image. And here it's going to explain to you how it's going to display it. Most by default, the file is going to display in line if the browser allows it, and if it's not, then it'll display as an attachment and students will be able to click on that and open it in a new window. If you don't want it to display within the page, then you can choose this option and then they'll just be able to download it. So I'm going to just choose that as decorative and hit save, and then you'll see it's part of my content here, and I will hit save here. And I'll go up to visible to students. And if I close that and go to student preview, they will now see my document there, and they'll be able to access that link that I put in there as well. So you'll also notice I'm going to exit student preview here. And one more thing I wanted to go over with you is you'll notice this little gauge here. So when you add things like, when you add images or you add documents, you're going to notice that gauge may not appear right away, but after a few minutes, after the page is refreshed and things, it is what we're refer to as an ally indicator. And this was part of Learn as well. But it's really important that you pay attention to these because if you click on that, it's going to give you information about this. Now, if I didn't have that marked accessible, or if I didn't have that marked as decorative, it would show what my alternate text is. So if I go in here to edit this and I change this,
Just to interject quickly, we have about 5 minutes left. So if you happen to have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat.
Thanks, Brian. So I just changed that to display the alternate text that I had. And if I hit save, and it still says it's perfect, but there we go. That it also shows instead of it indicating that it was marked as decorative, it says that it has a description. So it's just a really good habit, especially when you're moving into Ultra, to make sure that you're going through all of your content and looking to see what's the accessibility scores that you have, and pay attention to making sure it's compliant. I have here a few other examples where here is my syllabus, and here we go. Now here I have a high accessibility score, but it's also going to let me know that there's some things that I can improve on. Now this is a Word document, so it's not the same as the image I just showed you, but it also shows me what's wrong with this. And it says that this document contains tables that are missing headers. So what it suggests you do is upload a version with table headers, and you can get more help to say, well, what does that mean? And it'll explain it to you. And um, it will also give you some information on how to set those up. So if you wanted to see what all the issues are, it's also neat because it'll tell you once you fix the missing headers, it'll give you 100% rather than 68. So, and then it also mentions having text with insufficient contrast. So it's really a good idea to make sure that when you're adding content and you're building an Ultra, that you take advantage of the information that these little ally scores give you. So if I wanted to improve that, and then I had actually adjusted the document and just took the table out, and it uploads a new file. I just deleted that altogether, and that could take a few minutes, but it should, there we go. Now it's 99% because it's still indicating that there's some contrast concerns, which more than likely might be the links, and that's, but in either case, so then that has helped fix that. I've got one more document that is a lower score, just as an example, and you see here that it's medium. Same thing, now this is a PDF, and if I want to see what all the issues are, it's going to list them all out here, and once again, it'll show you what percentage those files can come up to. So that is just this quick overview of Ultra. And as it was mentioned earlier, there is some great resources in SharePoint for online learning that can help you when you are, really ready to sit down and start working in Ultra. And a lot of times it is beneficial to just do a little bit at a time and not overwhelm yourself with trying to just do everything all at once. Here's some Blackboard Ultra support. I can put this in the chat, and just all kinds of things. This is the Ultra training. This is practicing with Ultra, where it's just got little tiny things for you to do. And I see if I can put this in the chat. Yes, sir. Okay, what's the question? Is there an 88? Well, so a Word or PDF. Dr. Simpson had just mentioned yesterday that there's still a handful of discrepancies with those that have visual impairments, that PDFs are not always as accessible even as they appear to be. So we recommend using Word documents as much as possible. And the other thing with that is when you upload a Word document, you're going to be able to you'll actually be able to download a PDF as an alternate source. So that's sort of another advantage. In other words, if a student will prefer a PDF, they can go to this download alternate formats and they can choose a tagged PDF from that. Whereas if you have a PDF, I don't think it can give you a Word option. We'll check it out though. Let's test it. Let's see what we can do together. Yeah, it's, that a PDF is a PDF is a PDF. So there's that. But I've been told, and it's highly recommended to use Word documents as often as possible. And I know that we've got all kinds of support in that resource that I just posted to the chat on how to make your Word documents accessible and things like that. thought there was one other thing I was going to share with you, and now I guess I can't think of what it was. Hmm. Oh well.
All right. Here's as
Does
though
anybody
we
have
have
any other questions? I'm sorry, what did you say, sir?
So I was going to say, it appears as though we have came to time on the session. If anyone does have
Yes.
any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We'll give that just another moment or so. And for those of you who are still in attendance, thank you very much for attending the session. We appreciate you participating in this. We hope that you've learned some useful, very valuable skills that you can take with you and implement in your course. And we'd certainly like to thank Erica for her time and expertise in helping us to learn more about Ultra and all the things that it can do compared to the Learn Counterpart Classic. So thank you very much,
Well,
Erica, for all that you've shared
sir.
with us.
Yes, and don't forget that they're working hard to keep the updates coming in Ultra, and so hopefully whatever it quote unquote can't do, it's just a matter of it not being able to do it yet. So you all get it, you'll get there, and it's going to be great.